Well, good evening. I'm Anna Palmer, a founder of Punchbowl News. I'm joined by fellow founder Jake Sherman, and we are thrilled to kick off Punchbowl News' three-part virtual event series focused on President Joe Biden's first 100 days. A big thank you first to Edelman for sponsoring these events and making them possible. Our aim tonight is simple. We want to bring you closer to a key decision maker in Joe Biden's Washington. Tonight, we're going to be joined by White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain to discuss the president's COVID relief package, what's next on the agenda, and much more. After our conversation with Ron Klain, Edelman's U.S. COO, Lisa Ross, will join us for a fireside chat. A reminder, we'd love you to share any insights or big moments on Twitter. We'll also be taking audience questions, so feel free to tweet us at Punchbowl News with any questions. And with that, let's get to it and welcome Ron Klain to the stage.
Anna, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Well, thank you very much, Ron, or Mr. Chief of Staff, Mr. Klain. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to give you a quick 15 seconds or maybe more, just depending on how generous we feel, to spike the ball here. Congress, I just left the Capitol. Congress is about to pass in the next 24 hours the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, ARP, trying to set the tone for the recovery. What have you learned about Congress in these last, let's call it, less than 90 days since you've taken office?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jake, I think what we've learned is that Congress can do big things to help this country. That's what the American Rescue Plan is. It's a massive effort to beat this virus and to get our economy moving again. We spent a year fighting this virus from behind with half measures, without a national strategy, without the resources to implement that national strategy. We are where we are. So President Biden, even before he became president, put this plan in front of the country and said, this is what I need to crush the virus, to get the economy moving. We're thrilled that Congress, in less than 50 days, has taken this large package and has passed it pretty much intact, the way the president asked for it. I think it's a very significant piece of legislation. It helps with our fight against COVID. It helps the middle class. It'll help us get our schools open. It reduces child poverty, helps small business, helps veterans, helps lower people's health insurance premiums, all the things we need to do to turn this economy and this country around.
One thing that did fall out of the bill was the $15 minimum wage. What is your plan to get a minimum wage hike approved? I know it is a huge priority for progressives. Do you think the president would be open to less than $15 if it would mean getting to a deal?
Well, look, our focus, Anna, is on the fight for 15. President Biden endorsed that during the campaign. He campaigned on it. That's what we're going to work on. We're going to talk to our allies. We're going to talk to Democrats and hopefully even some Republicans in the Senate about how to do that. The Raise the Wage Act, the principal vehicle for that, does phase in over time. I think it's a 5 or 6 year phase in. So we're going to look at how we can get this thing passed. People should, as the president likes to say, people should not work full time and be in poverty. We need to raise the minimum wage.
So I'm going to push you a little bit on that there, because I can tell you that, I have not found any Republicans who are willing to raise it to 15. Maybe they exist. Maybe your persuasive powers will get them out of the woodwork. But is no minimum wage increase better? Isn't it better to get something? Because as you said, it phases in, right? It gets to 11, I think, after a year, and then upward from there. That's better, presumably, to get some people something at the front end.
Well, look, Jake, our position is the minimum wage should be $15. That is what we stand for, phased in over time. That's what we're going to fight for. And so obviously we had a procedural problem with doing it on this bill. Now we need to go back to the drawing board, come up with a legislative strategy that moves that forward. And that's what we're going to do.
So and on that point, so you're governing with a Congress with Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin. One thing we've liked to say in Punchbowl News as frequently as we can is Joe Manchin's vote is as important as Bernie Sanders, or perhaps even more important. I wonder if you have any reflections, here we are 50 days in, on what it's like governing a Democratic caucus in the Senate with Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin.
Well, Jake, it's funny. I'm a longtime Senate staffer. I love senators. I love Senator Sanders. I love Senator Manchin, and I enjoy my conversations with both of them. They obviously have very different points of view. But what I will say is that all our Democrats in the Senate, and I hope even more and more Republicans, recognize this country needs action to beat this virus, to deal with this economic crisis, and to go from there. So I'm happy to work with any senator in either party that wants to help President Biden move this country forward. Senator Sanders was incredibly helpful on passing this rescue package. Obviously, as the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, he was a key player in bringing this package to the floor through the reconciliation process. And of course, Senator Manchin was also critical to delivering those final votes to get us over the hump. There were a lot of senators who played key roles, starting with Senator Schumer, obviously as the leader, Senator Wyden on the Finance Committee, and I can just go down the list. So it's obviously it's a challenge to keep 50 Democrats united. Grateful that Senator Schumer did that on behalf of the president, working with his caucus. We're going to continue to work with every member of the Senate, Democrat and Republican, to move America's agenda forward.
Well, let's talk about that. The challenges going forward are clear. You were able to keep those 50 Democrats in the Senate together, and Nancy Pelosi was able to keep her caucus largely intact, which is a pretty phenomenal feat on such a massive bill. But going forward, it's going to be even harder. The White House has been hesitant to talk about what specifically is next on the legislative agenda. Give us your top 3 legislative goals for 2021. And how do you actually sequence this to continue to get wins like you've started so strong on?
Well, Anna, first of all, I'm going to let the president announce what's next when he's ready to announce what's next. The way for me to shorten my tenure as chief of staff is to get ahead of him, which I'm not going to do. On the one hand, what I will say, though, is obviously everything we've done in the 48 days we've been here has been what he promised to do as a candidate for president. We promised to tackle the virus and the economy first. We then said we would build back better. And that meant trying to restore the economy to where it should be, not just get out of this rescue phase, but really get into a recovery phase, really strengthening the economy around infrastructure, around manufacturing, around caring, around these other things. So I'll let the president roll that out when we're ready to roll it out. What I will say, though, is, look, I really hope that in this next phase, we can get some bipartisan support. The thing about the rescue plan is that it had bipartisan support in the country. Republican voters, Republican mayors, Republican governors, Republican business leaders. So we are never going to stop working to try to get those Republicans in the country joined by Republicans here in Washington. We need the Republicans in the 20510 and the 20515 zip codes to join with the Republicans in all the other zip codes, and that's going to be something we're going to continue to work on here as we move our agenda forward.
And let me just ask you on that point. I mean, many components of this bill had Republican support in the previous Congress when Donald Trump was president. I mean, many of the things in this bill, I'm not shortchanging what you guys did because it was a big victory. But almost everything in here has been voted on before. Do you think and I assume you think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you think it was just because Joe Biden was president and they didn't want to give him a victory early on?
Look, it's not a question of putting words in my mouth. It's a question of putting words in their mouths. I'll let them explain. I'll let them explain why they voted no. I know why we proposed this plan. I know why the people who voted for it voted for the plan. The people who voted against it can characterize their own votes.
So let's talk about a couple priorities that Joe Biden was big on the campaign trail: immigration reform, gun control, election overhaul. I mean, these are a lot of big agenda items that you're not going to get if the filibuster is not blown up. I mean, how do you manage expectations on that? I mean, how do you? I think you'd concede that none of those things are going to get done unless the filibuster is blown up. So, I mean, what do you say to the Democratic base that expects this of this Congress?
Look, we're going to work on all these problems. I'm not going to concede anything right now. We've been here 47 days.
I'll concede it for you, though. These things are not going to get done until
Jake,
unless you blow up the filibuster.
Well, maybe you and I should switch jobs then. Look, I'm not going to concede that. I'm not going to concede that at this stage of the game. What I will say is we've been here 47 days, and in those 47 days, we've made history almost every single day, whether that's with the first openly LGBTQ member of the president's cabinet, or the first woman Secretary of Treasury, or this American Rescue Plan, or rejoining Paris, or reversing the Muslim ban, or any of the many other things we've done. And we're going to continue to make progress for the American people. That's our goal. That's what we're going to do. That's what we've done so far. That's what we're going to continue to press forward on.
So far, you've been able to keep progressives pretty much at bay or on your side. You had Senator Sanders, Senator Warren, a lot of them coming out praising this bill as the biggest thing since Obamacare. But immigration reform, there is clearly strong agitation and desire to have something happen. There's a crisis down at the border in terms of separations of children from their family. How do you propose dealing with that? Is that going to be a piecemeal approach? Is that the way that forward for just based on the kind of context of politics in Washington right now? Or do you actually think there could be a bigger bill here?
Well, Rizla, and I have to disagree. We are not separating children from their families at the border. We do have we have unaccompanied children coming here and presenting themselves at the border, but the Biden administration is not doing what the Trump administration did and separating families when they arrive. So I want to just be absolutely clear on that. But to your broader point, look, immigration is a big challenge. And obviously, we've had a system that's been broken for a long time. Prior presidents have tried to fix it. They've been unable to fix it. That's one reason why we started on day one and sent an immigration bill to Congress on Joe Biden's first day in the White House. We know it's hard. Look, we know it's hard to fix a system that's been broken this long. But I will say, you hear some Republicans say they want to be part of immigration reform. We know that a lot of the basics, as Jake alluded to before when we talked about the rescue plan, a lot of the basics here are things that are common sense, things that we need to do. So we're going to work with the Congress. We're going to try to move immigration reform forward. We think it's absolutely vital. We have more than 11 million people in this country living in the shadows. Many of them have been here for many, many years. We have the dreamers who've been here, brought here as children. We need to fix these problems as part of a long overdue piece of business in this country.
Now, let's just on immigration reform for 1 second, or on immigration policy, is the Democratic, criticism from both sides of the aisle on these detention facilities, call them what you want to call them, on the border, on the U.S.-Mexico border. Are those criticisms fair?
Look, I think we inherited a real mess. We inherited the facilities we have. We are committed to a policy that follows the rule of law and that is humane. And we are doing our best to surge capacity to the border, particularly for these children who arrive here without parents, to house them in a way that's safe, to house them in a way that's humane, to help ultimately reunite them with either family they have in this country, with sponsors who are willing to take them in this country. That takes time. That's not something you can do overnight.
How much time do you think you need? How much time do you think you need how much time is fair to give this administration to get these policies in order?
Well, look, Jake, I hope people will look at what we're trying to do and judge us based on our actions. I think that we're also open for suggestions, ideas. It's a hard problem. I'm not going to deny that this is one of the most vexing problems we face, and it is a very difficult situation. But I will tell you, we had some of the president's senior advisors down there over the weekend. We are focused on this like a laser. I think Secretary Mayorkas is doing a great job trying to manage this, trying to get this going in the right direction. Obviously, we need Secretary Becerra confirmed. He oversees the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which, notwithstanding its name, is really also an office of asylum-seeking people resettlement also. And so, we need the right leadership at HHS to help solve this problem, but we're working on it.
All right, I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about OMB. Neera Tanden's nomination has been pulled. We included Neera as part of your orbit, as part of the opener, a feature we were doing on Punchbowl News focused on key figures like yourself in the Biden administration's first 100 days. Will she have an official role in the Biden administration going forward?
Yes, she will. We're looking for a spot for Neera. Obviously, it will not be a Senate-confirmed place. She will not be in the president's cabinet. But the president thinks Neera is incredibly talented as a policy advisor. We're going to find some role for her in this administration to bring those talents to bear. And in the meantime, obviously, we've nominated Shalonda Young. We had already nominated her to be the deputy OMB director. We hope the Senate will confirm her quickly, get her in that chair so she can be the acting OMB director. And then the president will obviously pick someone to fill the seat that's left vacant by Neera's withdrawal.
House Democratic leaders have publicly pushed for Shalonda to actually be the permanent OMB director. So far, no dice. Are you?
You might have heard that. You might have seen that statement.
I'm sorry, I could not hear your question, Anna.
Are you not moved by that request by Democrats? I've never seen Democratic leaders in unison push somebody for a position like this.
Look, we're definitely moved by it, but even more, the president himself picked Shalonda for the number 2 post in OMB. That's a sign of the great respect we have for her. She's certainly a very serious candidate for the lead position in OMB. But right now, our goal is to get the key chairs filled urgently. That means focusing the Senate on confirming the agencies where we have cabinet nominees and no deputies in place. We're making some progress in the Senate this week. We're supposed to get 3 cabinet members confirmed tomorrow. Again, I think the most urgent way to fill our needs at OMB would be to get Shalanda confirmed as deputy, let her act, and then the president will have an announcement about who his nominee will be. I think Shalanda Young is very much on that list. She is an enormously talented person. We're grateful to have her as part of the team. And she is definitely under consideration for the top post.
So let's talk. We're quickly running out of time here. I want to talk about infrastructure, which even though the White House won't concede that it's the top priority, everyone else in town seems to think it's the top priority. So you know how that goes. Should we expect a bill that's an infrastructure bill that's $1 trillion or more?
Well, I'm going to hate to keep repeating myself on this, but I'm going to let the president announce his infrastructure bill when he's ready to announce his infrastructure bill. What I will say is, look, we have governed the way we campaigned. I mean, I don't think there have been any big surprises about what we've done in these 48 days. And the president ran on an agenda of Build Back Better, which included a very substantial investment in infrastructure, in manufacturing, in caregiving. And so I think you should expect to see that come forward from us as part of, the next things we are doing. I'll let the president announce the timing and the size and the scope. But America has huge infrastructure needs. I mean, I think one reason why everyone's talking about it is because everyone knows it is a big problem. It is a bipartisan problem. We've had Republicans at the White House, in the House, and the Senate tell us that they also share, if not exactly the same way we want to do it, an idea that we need to do something big on infrastructure. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we can find a path forward on infrastructure that is substantial, that is bipartisan.
Can you let me just drill down a little bit more on that? I mean, infrastructure means a lot of things to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Could we dig in on that a little bit? I mean, how does the White House view, or how do you view infrastructure? I mean, I've seen this flame out less serious efforts, to be sure, with John Boehner and Paul Ryan, or they were not as committed as you guys seem to be to infrastructure at this point. I mean, how do you view this holistically?
Look, I think we view infrastructure as the kind of investments this country needs to get ready to succeed in this century, to beat China in the global economy, to create the kinds of jobs we need, not just building the infrastructure, but then the jobs that infrastructure powers in terms of bringing products to market. It includes things, as the president has said, like hundreds of thousands of charging stations for the new generation of electrical vehicles that are going to be on the road here in the years to come. It includes investments in power transmission for clean power. It obviously includes things like roads and bridges and all these other things. But we need a 21st century infrastructure to compete in a 21st century global economy. And I think that's really at the top of Joe Biden's agenda. Way back in January, we laid out the rescue plan. He said, rescue first, then recovery. And a key part of recovery is being globally competitive. And infrastructure is a key part of being globally competitive.
All right, before we let you go, can you give us any sense of when the president will be giving a joint address to Congress? A lot of people have been wondering why it's taking so long.
Well, I think we wanted to get through this rescue plan first and get it done and get it passed. Then we're going to go to the country. We're going to take a couple weeks to really explain the plan, as I said. I think shortly after that, you'll see him work with the Congress on a joint address that's appropriate for COVID and all these other the times we're living in.
All right. Well, Ron Klain, White House Chief of Staff, thank you so much for your time this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ralph.
All right. Well, now we'd like to welcome Lisa Ross, Edelman's U.S. COO, to join us for a fireside chat in this virtual world to talk about our conversation with Ron Klain, how Democrats are approaching the new Washington, and more. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Anna. Good to see you, Jake. Before we get started, I'm afraid I'll forget. Congratulations. Great job. I remember the first time I met you, and I was super struck and impressed with your composure and your willingness to hear diverse points of view and your balance. And I'm happy to see it here at Punchbowl. So best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, we have a lot to unpack there. We pressed Mr. Klain on many issues, but I'll just tee it up to you first. I mean, there's a couple things that stuck out to me, but Lisa, what's your top line? What was your takeaway from hearing him about 50 or so days into this White House?
I was struck by his competency. I was struck by his humility. I was struck, and I think because it's such a contrast to what we've seen, not just in the Trump administration, but in other administrations as well. And as a former appointee, I couldn't stop thinking about three things. One was what they have been able to do in this short period of time. I mean, when in the green room, we said that for them, this is very, very much like the passage of Obamacare. This is huge. And to be able to do this in such a short period of time. So, experience matters. Being prepared matters. Competency matters. And I think the way they came in was pretty amazing. And, just sort of his description of, I'm a staffer and I'm here to which is very much, and Jake, you were pushing him on this. You weren't. It wasn't quite as spicy as the Oprah interview, but you were getting there.
Well, no one has ever accused me of being nearly as good as Oprah. So I mean, I think I think she has many legs up on me in that category, to be honest with you.
But no,
you served in the Clinton White House. I mean, so you have a history of being a staffer, right? I mean, but how do you think Joe Biden is and by the way, everyone's a staffer besides Joe Biden, which is the ultimate kind of irony.
But everyone knows that, and you having
good point.
Everyone knows that they're a staffer. It's true, but not everybody knows that.
That's true. I mean, how do you view? So if you zoom back a little bit and think about your experience and Biden, and just how Obama governed, how Trump governed, and how Biden is governing, and how Clinton governed. I mean, what's your takeaway? What's your general takeaway in that?
I mean, he's good. He's ready. The administration is ready. The people that he's hired are ready. I will tell you, though, because it did make me think about my days as a staffer. And for me, one of the things that really resonated was the day of the inauguration when President Biden did the virtual swearing in of appointees. And I think for everyone who has served in this capacity, it was a very meaningful moment. But when he set the tone for his administration, we will be honest, we will be as transparent, we will be forthright. And if he didn't use the word shenanigans, which I was happy about, but he said, and if I don't see you living up to the values that we believe in, I will fire you on the spot. I don't know if you remember that, but he said, I will fire you on the spot. And he has, or he's called for resignations. And so I think what struck me as an appointee was him and the administration as an employer and the things that you have to do to make sure that people understand what the expectations are. They understand that we are all staffers for the American people, not for the president, but we are all staffers for the American people. And this clear vision about this is where we're going. And come hell or high water, we're going to bring people along, but we're going to get there. That's what struck me.
One of the things that I kind of take from this conversation is, they have such big problems that they're trying to solve. You think about immigration reform, which we press them on. You think about minimum wage. You think about, Green New Deal. All kinds of issues that have really been at loggerheads. But man, this Congress is going to be tough for them. They were able to keep it together because this was kind of his first priority. Obviously, no president has more capital than when they first come into office. But Lisa, from your perspective, you give advice to the private sector. Corporate America is agitating on a lot of these issues to get something done. How optimistic are you, kind of given what he said and the tea leaves that we're all reading, that some of these things, infrastructures, kind of we try to push them a little bit on, could actually get done?
So I'm optimistic, but I also am worried and concerned, and we have a great need for this administration to succeed from a business perspective. I know that you follow our Edelman Trust Barometer, and we released it in January. One of the things that emerged this year was terrifying, and that was for the first time ever, the global community distrust American business. So you know what that does to our economy? That hurts. And so I have to have confidence that this administration is going to deliver, because the inference for that trust data is for global partners who feel poorly about the government, who don't trust the government, that lands on business. And that hurts our ability to participate and to succeed and to thrive in a global economy. So I'm positive almost because I have to be. But I also, President Biden gives you a sense of confidence. He's like, I got this. He's like, yeah, I got this. And I think that gives you confidence, whether you personally like him, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, but he's a sage. And I think that comes across.
I wonder what, and you answered this partially, I want to drill down a little bit more. I wonder there's so many priorities out there that corporate America has. I mean, Anna and I hear about it all the time, right? There's immigration reform. There's a million. I'm wondering if you could just give us a couple things that you hear the most from clients, and what are the biggest things, like when you have to sit down and think of like, oh, this is what corporate America is really concerned about. What is it exactly?
Corporate America is worried about infrastructure. Look at Texas. Corporate America is worried about social and racial equity because it has a huge impact on our employee base and it has a huge impact on our customer base. Corporate America is worried about the pandemic. It was not funny, but during the summer, Richard and I might be on any number of calls with global CEOs with the set agenda. And before we could do anything, they were like, hey, what's going on over there? What in God's name almost are you people doing? And it was embarrassing. And it had a really negative impact. So corporate America is looking for stability. They're looking for innovation. They're looking for creativity. ESG remains a really big issue. But, the problems that government has gets in the way of business doing what it's supposed to do. And if government and business are not working together, you do not have a civil and safe and profitable society.
We're quickly running out of time, but to your point, I actually thought one of the things that Jake and I have remarked upon about this administration, which is so different than the Trump administration, is yes, the competency and the people that have just been in these positions before. And so it's kind of a return to regular order. But we have seen when they do roll out some of these big plans, kind of companies line up and all of a sudden putting statements out. You have from associations to downtown to, chairman of committees. And it's a real sense that there is this almost, kind of firewall when they put something out. How much, and I assume for you all, like must be one of the benefits, right? That you're starting to see is that if it's infrastructure, if it's some of these other issues, that there is going to be some kind of, return to, all right, this is the process. This is where we weigh in. This is when we can, kind of pull back. This is how we can try to shape things. Am I reading that right?
Absolutely. Chaos is destructive. I don't care where you sit on your political spectrum, but chaos is destructive. Confidence, again, regardless of whether you agree, gives you a sense of we can work together, we can make a difference together, and we are also working for the American people, and we are looking for a way to increase jobs, increase opportunity, increase access across the board. And I think business feels that they have a partner with this administration in order to deliver on those things.
All right. Well, we are unfortunately out of time this evening, but I want to thank you so much, Lisa, for spending a few minutes to get your read on the reaction to our conversation with White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, as well as kind of how the business community is handling the Biden administration in these early days. Obviously, thank you so much for your support of Edelman sponsoring these conversations. And I want to just remind everyone, we're going to be back March 24th at 5 p.m. with another conversation. This one centered on how Washington is changing as more women and more women of color are rising in the ranks on Capitol Hill, on K Street, and in the Biden administration. I hope you will join us then. In the meantime, you can follow us on all social media channels at Punchbowl News, and you can subscribe at punchbowl.news. Have a great night and stay safe.
Thank you. Anna, you should have invited me for that one.
You're invited. You're coming. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.